attending tonight's meeting. We'll bring the City Council meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll make a motion to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
Motion made second. Any discussion? Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Presentations. Public hearing for variance for septic holding tanks at 428 Elm Road. Jack.
The property owner is seeking approval for the variance for a Type 2 septic system at 428 Elm Road Northeast. It's in the Coon Lake Beach area. Type 2 septic systems are holding tanks that require a variance per the Minnesota rules and the MPCA. The existing drain field will be disconnected from the tank, and the effluent will need to be pumped from the tank. The existing drain field failed during an inspection because it does not meet the required 3-foot separation from the bottom of the drain field. The existing separation is at 2 feet. Also, the drain field is required to be placed 20 feet from the house foundation. The existing drain field is set back between 10 to 13 feet from the foundation. Therefore, there's no room on the property to upgrade the drain field. The existing drain field will be disconnected from the tank again, and the effluent will need to be pumped from the tank on a regular basis. If the variance is not granted, the residential structure will be considered uninhabitable due to lack of working septic system. Variances for Type 2 systems cannot be approved if there is space on the property to install a compliant septic system. This property is quite small, located in the Coon Lake Beach area. It's 0.18 acres in size, and again does not have room for the placement of the compliant drain field. So up on the PowerPoint, you'll see this is the property. So there is not much room to put in a new drain field in. There is a pending sale on the property. The request for the variance was prompted by the city septic compliance inspection that is required by code for the transfer of property. The closing of the sale is contingent upon the approval of the variance to satisfy city code requirements of the lender. Consideration of a variance requires the following 3-factor test. First, we have the test of reasonableness, giving consideration to use the property restricted by the rules of the ordinance in a particular matter. So this property septic systems are required for a home to be habitable. Minnesota Septic Code prohibits holding tanks unless approved through the variance process by the municipality in which they're located. The approval of the variance would allow this property to continue as a residential use. The second is the test of uniqueness. The issue for the variance is due to circumstances unique to the property and not caused by the landowner. In this case, the property has limited space for the placement of a drain field due to the lot size. This whole area was platted back in the 1920s. The current setbacks for the wells and structures, DNR, lakeshore regulations, all of these reasons are why there's limited space on this property for the drain field. The test of alteration of the essential character of the neighborhood. This factor is used to consider whether the resulting structure or improvement will be out of place or otherwise inconsistent with the surrounding area. In this case, the neighborhood has had significant number of septic variances due to the age of the neighborhood and the small lot sizes. With a number of older systems needing to be replaced in the area, this variance request is quite common, and granting this variance will not change the character of the Coon Lake Beach neighborhood. So at this time, staff requests City Council to hold a public hearing in regarding the variance for a Type 2 septic system at 428 Elm Road Northeast. Staff recommends City Council approve Resolution 2022-47, which would be granting the variance to allow the installation of the system.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. With that, we'll open the public hearing for the variance for a Type 2 septic system located at 428 Elm Road. If there's anyone interested in this matter, I'd like to speak to council. Now is your time. Please come forward. Good evening. If you can state your name and address, please.
Crystal Longton.
Crystal, can you pull the mic down? Thank you.
Crystal Longton, 428 Elm Road.
I just wanted to say that we have lost that sale of the home due to not being able to repair our system and having to put holding tanks in. Because an average family of 2 people would have to get that pumped about every 2 to 3 weeks. So I just wanted to let you know that we have lost 3 sales now on our home. Nobody wants to buy a house with holding tanks either, but that's our only option. So just wanted to let you know that, yeah, it's not pending anymore. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight wishing to speak on this matter? Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion on the resolution?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2022-47, granting a variance to allow for the installation of a type 2 septic system at 428 Elm Road Northeast.
Second.
Motion made in second. Discussion.
Well, I have some questions on this. Is there a reason the whole thing just can't be replaced so that it's and meet the dimensions that are required instead of the 2 feet, do the 3 feet and?
Right, so there isn't enough space on the property. Right now, the drain field is actually running along the property line, if you look up at the screen. And right now, it's set back at, some portions of it says 10 feet and some is 13 feet from the house. And it needs to be at least 20 feet because of the foundation of the house. There's a basement there, so you have to have that separation, that 20-foot separation.
It runs up and down this way.
Oh, well, yeah, this way, sorry.
Well, this house was just built in 1982. It's not that old, in my mind. It's not that old. My question is, when did the regulations change and why can't they be grandfathered in?
Building codes change routinely every 3 to 6 years. They get updated, and stuff in many cases can't be grandfathered in.
And my question is why?
Well,
Some things can and some things
That's
can't.
a question that we can't answer. That'd be a question for the state.
well, as I understand, there's two issues with the septic field. And I've had a lot of discussions with the homeowners and staff too. There's a separation distance to groundwater. That's the height of the system. And then the location of the system relative to the foundation of the building. So what I understand is that the criteria changed 20 years ago, whenever, on how that 3-foot separation is defined. So back when this was installed, it was an old definition, and that's why it was within 2 feet. And now the standard's 3 feet.
And it's not uncommon
So
with,
the standard change, it's not uncommon.
yeah, with house sales for the septic to fail because of that reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot in the city and all cities.
Yeah, the septic may be functioning just fine, but
But the second aspect of it is the location between the septic field and the house, which is the setback's 20 feet.
Mhm.
That setback hasn't changed. It was 20 feet back when this drain field was installed. And as best I can tell from the drawings that were in city files, staff understood that the drain field was closer than 20 feet when it was approved.
Yep, that's correct.
So the city approved the location of that drain field within the 20 feet. So
It was back
question.
in the 90s, that it was, I believe.
I think late 90s, yeah.
1999.
But the criteria, the code was 20 feet back then.
Yes.
So staff doesn't understand, doesn't know if there's a variance. Nothing went through council, obviously.
We did
Because I don't
not
think
find
anything went
any.
through council back then.
There was mention that it needed to go to council, but we didn't find any verification that
Yeah.
it did.
So at least in my mind, it was constructed, the city's knowledge that was within 20 feet. So a question I have for our city attorney is, put the other issue aside about the 3-foot separation. If it was only a setback issue and they needed to replace their septic drain field, and we approved it once, whether we formally gave them a variance or not, we approved it. Should they not be allowed to replace it if we allowed it once?
Well, it's, Mayor and council, if it was indeed granting a variance, the variance would still apply. So
Okay.
if there was a variance on setbacks, the variance would still apply. As far as a question about legal nonconformity, if the setback was always 20, it was 20 at the time, and there was no variance, it wouldn't be a legal nonconformity, it would be an illegal nonconformity because it didn't comply. So I
Even
think,
if the city approved it?
even if the city approved it. So the question is there a variance? If there is a variance, that variance still applies. But if there isn't, it's an illegal nonconformity.
Oh. And there was no record of a variance?
No, we looked through
Okay.
everything and didn't find anything.
This really doesn't seem fair to the homeowners. I just don't understand this stuff. But what can I do?
Well, the craw I have with this is, to me, the city knew, staff was aware, but 20 years ago, staff was aware that it was within that 20 feet, and it was approved, we signed it, you know? So, to me, whether the formal variance was done through council or not, I don't know.
And I obviously can't say whether a formal variance is done. I don't know. That is not the variance that's being applied for today. You know, we're talking about something other than that.
Oh, I understand
Yeah.
that, I understand. But kind of my point is, and I know it's not the application night, but understand what they're going through is, if that setback wasn't an issue, and it was only the 3-foot separation, then they would have an option to put in a mounted drain field. But, well, you know, set aside the setback from a house, which isn't exactly an expensive option either, but at least it's an option, so. But that was my whole thing about the whole setback. Now, look at the other way, is if they applied for it now, it wouldn't be allowed at all. So it'd be clear, not allowed. So it shouldn't have been allowed back then either, so.
Let me ask another question. If, in fact, we go ahead and approve this evening, and they can go ahead and make the modifications or sell it or whatever, what happens to the next owner who goes to sell it? It's gonna be non-conforming then, and we aren't gonna have a variance at that point either.
Well, my
So it'd
understanding.
be illegal non-conforming if we did.
At this point, yes, it would be legal nonconformity if the variance is granted, because the variance will run with the land. So the subsequent owner is not in the same position as having to come before the council and replace the holding tank. They can just go ahead and do it because the variance will still be there.
But the holding tank, if they have to get it emptied every couple of months, that's crazy, because that costs a lot of money nowadays to.
There's quite a few places in the beach
That have them.
in other areas too, not just the beach, so.
And it was a very, very quick search. I know staff has done the search. I don't see anything recorded on the property on Anoka County's website to indicate that there was a variance granted in the past, so.
Okay.
Was this septic system was put in after the house was built then, in 99? What was the house built with?
That we don't have much
We don't have
information.
records
Yeah,
either?
it would have been a cesspool.
Okay,
Usually.
in 80, okay, so then this was put in 99,
Yep, tank and drain field.
tank and drain field.
But it's functioning well, right?
Is there something we missed?
Can I speak? I bought the house in September.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you come up to the microphone? We've closed the public hearing, but I know you're a homeowner, so.
I bought the house in 78. And the addition was in 75, which hooked the cabin to the garage. And the basement's in there. The other part's right here. So this was the cabin, this was the garage, They built this whole section right here, in 75. I bought it in 78. The tank was right here, a block tank, dirt floor. In this area here is a cement three-season porch. The well was right in there. 75, I was there. So this is 23 feet, 24 feet right here. So we're probably at the most 28 feet from where that other, maybe 30 feet from that other tank. That was never updated, and the drain field was in the same area. Drain tank now is over here, and then the goes this way here. There's 3 runs in there. I went to Olson's because they're the biggest, the best, and I wanted to make sure everything was done right. I didn't want to have the cheap guy do it. I spent top dollar for that, and it ain't working. It's not up to code. Because, and then I had to put a well in, the well was here, I put the well out here.
Yep.
So, I tried to do everything by the book. The best guys, had them do it, paid the extra money. I don't know where that variance, how come, if this was supposed to be 20, this is only about 20 feet right here. Somewhere's in here's 20 feet. 'Cause how was that put in? Why did I have to waste the money on it then?
Well,
You know, I mean, that's what, I mean, because it's like 13 feet. You know, so I mean, I don't know what happened back then. You guys don't either because you weren't here.
the rules changed. That's, when, the rules, when you install that, it looks like you followed the rules. The rules changed. That's what you and a lot of homeowners in that area are dealing with, so. Chris, let me ask this, is council able, again, it would have, I'm not talking about the separation issue, I'm talking about the setback issue. If the homeowners were to come in with a proposal to replace the drain field, it would obviously need a variance from the setback from the house. Is the council in a position that we can do that?
Specifically with regard to septic, perhaps Jack or Stephanie would have more information. Generally with a variance, yes, you could consider that variance if there were an application for it. Obviously, there's not tonight, but if it were actually applied for, that would be different. I don't know if there's any specific limitations on the consideration of setback variances with a drain field with regard to the surrounding lots. That'd be something we'd have to look into to see if they could apply for it, if it could be granted. But if there were an application, it would go to the council for consideration.
And the only reason I even suggest that is the fact that the city approved it once, knowing that it, didn't meet the setback, whether or not they went through the variance process or not. So I just want to know whether that was an option for council, but it's not part of this application, but I just want to get that out there. So.
And we did find the permit application for them to do this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But we didn't find any variance or anything.
No, there was a note on there that they would have to, it would be brought forward. The city council actually back then got a memo from the building official saying that this will be coming forward as a variance, and it never did.
Never did. Okay.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that. So it was on the agenda. Well, it wasn't on the agenda.
It was
gonna be on
discussed, we know, yeah, we found them a memo. But then we researched and we didn't find any variance application.
It just seems to me there was an intent to do that, and maybe it just wasn't followed through, but. Okay. Well, back to the discussion on the application at hand. Is there any further discussion?
Well, it just seems like a holding tank is not going to give the homeowners what they need in order to sell this property. And if there
Oh,
was
no, I
another
mean,
way
it
to
doesn't-
go,
they'll be able to sell it, it just won't be as marketable, and I think they're seeing it already, so. I mean, we gotta have dozens.
We have dozens. I know, sitting on the
Yeah.
planning
Yeah.
commission, we've done a number of them.
City council just approved one, I believe, a month ago.
Just did
as
one
well,
last
on Elm
fall,
Road.
yeah. And there'll be more.
I just don't think this is a good solution for anybody, but I'm all for giving them this, but I'm hoping that they can come back with and find some kind of a loophole somewhere. Maybe talk to some representative and get the state to change the rules. That's
I
a,
think the state's gonna change anything, but
I think they're gonna make it stricter the way they're going with environmental.
okay, is there any other discussion? To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. On to item B, East Bethel Fire Relief Association Benefit Increase Presentation. Good evening.
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, esteemed council, thank you for the opportunity to present this evening. I'm going to be looking at this screen right here, so.
Okay.
All right, so what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is a benefit increase for the East Bethel Firefighters Relief Association. And I'm gonna tell you why we're asking for that, why it's important, and how we came up with the calculations to determine that that was a prudent financial decision. And I'll present those numbers to you. So go ahead to the next slide. So just a review of where we're at here in 2022. We want to talk about an overview of the Relief Association in general, our goals, the reason for a Relief Association in general, our current status, city contribution for 2023 and beyond, relief benefit levels, and our requests. Next slide, please. So just an overview of the Relief Association. So what the Relief Association is designed for is to provide monetary benefits to members who meet the minimum requirements. And a pension is paid in the East Bethel Firefighters Relief Association upon retirement for members that achieved at least 10 years of service and that member has reached the age of 50. Currently, our Relief Association is managed by Harman & Hartman Investments with oversight by the Relief Board. And in addition to that, we go through several audits every year, including an audit using the same company that the city uses for their audit. And also, we turn in paperwork to the state auditor, which also audits us on an annual basis. Next slide, please. So the goals of the Relief Association of Trustees is to provide a pension benefit that attracts and retains volunteer firefighters. We want to maintain a fully funded pension plan, and we want to provide retirees with accurate and timely payment of benefits. We monitor our investment performance regularly, and we communicate effectively with our members and with the City Council because we want to make sure there are no surprises. Next slide, please. So experienced firefighter retention is key to our city and all departments at this time. Across the nation, it's becoming harder and harder to attract paid on-call or volunteer firefighters in all cities, states, and it's becoming a real problem in the United States. So just on our department alone, I ran some numbers here. So we currently have 15 members that are vested, which means they could retire today and collect a pension. Which includes 85% of the department. This includes 305 years of experience, which is the majority of the department experience, almost 79% of our department experience. And this includes numerous key positions within the department. Almost all of the officers are currently vested. And why is that important? It takes about 3 years for a new recruit to become fully trained and able to effectively respond to calls. Of course, some members, they're able to do it right away, and other people, it takes a little bit longer, but on average, it takes about 3 years for people to get up to speed and be fully contributing members of the department. Next slide, please. So where does the Relief Association receive our funding? So this is aggregate over the last 5 years, and about 28% of our income is from state aid. about 6% city contribution, other miscellaneous about 1%, and most of the money that we receive is from investment earnings, which is about 66%. And the numbers right here that I'm showing you are for the East Bethel Firefighters Relief Association. These numbers are pretty universal throughout the entire state. Next slide. And where does the money go for the Relief Association? It really only goes to two places. Number one, it goes to administration, which costs, unfortunately, about $10,000 per year. And it goes to pay pensions, which varies. It depends on if members retire in a given year and if they are the age of 50. Next slide. So this right here shows a record of the state contributions and the municipal contributions over the last many years. And you can see that the state contributions are rising. That's the blue columns here. And the city contributions have maintained a very steady balance. And that's something that we very much appreciate from the city. Next slide. This slide right here shows a history of our benefits as well. So what we're always looking for is to maintain a fully funded investment portfolio so that we have the money in our coffers to pay out our pensions when the pensions come due. And what we always try to do is maintain at least 110% funding. Now, some people say that what you really should strive for is 100% funding, but we also want to make sure that there's some wiggle room. So when the market is up or down, there is not a mandatory contribution by the city when there doesn't need to be. And over the last many years, since I've been involved with the Relief Association, we've tried to keep tabs on this, and we've given raises based on being properly funded. And what we try to do is keep the number, which is the assets, higher than the liabilities, which makes all the sense in the world. And no matter how hard we try to get that number in a normal range, you can see when we get to the end of the chart, we're always at this giant gap. We're trying to get to 110% funded, and it seems like every year we end up at 130% funded, 140% funded. So if you look at the numbers that are on this chart here, all these numbers were taken from the report that the state auditor provides every year, except for the last 3 years. Unfortunately, the state auditor's report is always a couple years behind. So the numbers for 2 of the last 3 years are numbers from the paperwork that we submitted to the state auditor for the annual audit. And then the final column on here is from our projections, which is what we presented for this year to the state auditor. So again, what we try to do is maintain 110% funded balance. And you can see that the numbers are, we have quite a large gap there, even though we've tried. Okay, so if you go to the next slide, this shows a one page from the paperwork that we submit to the state auditor each year, which is the maximum benefit worksheet. So this is calculated based on numbers over the last 3 years, and it takes into account the number of members that we have. It takes into account the municipal and state aid that we're receiving, and then it also takes into account our surplus balance, which is in our account. And it has some kind of giant formula in the background, and it uses that to come up with what is the maximum benefit. And you can see that for the year 2022, the maximum benefit could be $6,000 per year of service. So what we do each year when we fill out these reports for the state auditors, we go through and we fill out the paperwork, we work with our auditors, make sure that all the numbers are in alignment, and then we run some scenarios on what would happen if we were to change that benefit level for the current year. So if you go to the next slide, that's what this slide is. We're looking at what the scenarios would be if we were to change the benefit level. So if we left it the same versus if we went up to the maximum, and we look at it in $100 increments. And you can see here, even looking at the current stock market, which at the time that I did this, which was just about a week ago, it was updated last week, the year-to-date rate of return was at negative 10.84%, which does not sound all that great, but but it is actually, even if the market were to stay at that level and we did go to the maximum benefit, we would still be 116% funded at the end of the year. And that's well above the 110% that we're trying to maintain. All right, so if you go to the next slide, This is the history of the benefit, and you can see that it has increased at a decent amount over the last several years, and that's, again, because our portfolio supported it. Go to the next slide. In addition to the fire services that we provide to the citizens of East Bethel, I'm not sure if everybody's aware of all the community outreach that our members do as well. So we do have a fire safety program for the local schools. We have our Heart Safe program, which we have had at least 2 known saves with. We're the charter organization for the local Cub Scout pack. We have our fire auxiliary, which does a lot of amazing things in our community as well. We do first aid training for Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, the local BMX group. We have a retiree group that we meet up with on a monthly basis. We support the St. Francis Royalty, and for many years we supported the East Bethel Royalty at all. Unfortunately, that program has folded. We support the local food shelf. We've not only supported them monetarily and with donations of food items and clothing items, we actually did a project there where we replaced their flooring. All right, next slide. So what we're looking to do is increase our benefit level from the current $5,400 per year of service to $6,000 per year of service starting on December 1st, 2022. And go to the next slide. And just a summary, in 2022, we did maintain our goal of 100% funded status. We're over 120% funded status right now. Even going to this maximum level would bring us to still 116% funded status. And just to maintain this goal, we really need healthy investments, prudent yet competitive benefit levels, consistent city contributions, which we have received, thank you very much. And maintaining an outstanding relationship between the Relief Association and the city. And there is a missing slide in here, which I don't know where it went, but there was a. Oh, is there? Can you go back about 3-4 slides? Go with one more. Okay, one more. Okay, so this slide we skipped over. So this was a snapshot from last week, and the numbers that the state auditor uses are a little bit different than the real numbers. Okay, when we talked about using the state auditor's numbers, if we went to the maximum benefit, we would be at 116% funded. So this is actually the real number. So this is the number of what our balance was as of last week. And on that same very day, if every single firefighter were to quit that day and we paid out everybody that day, this is what the surplus would be. At the current level of $5,400 per year, the surplus would be $736,000. And even if we went to the $6,000 benefit level, if everybody were to quit that day, we would still have a surplus of $577,000. So that is much more than the 116% funded that the state auditor is showing. And I understand why their numbers are slightly different, because they're assuming things from the future, but this is the real situation. This is the real number for today. So anyway, I want to thank you for the opportunity to present to you, and I would like to ask you if you had any questions about the presentation.
Jack, can you go back to the slide right before this one? So in your worst case, that's the current rate of return.
That's the current rate of return. The numbers that we use on an annual basis when I do these projections is we usually go with a 7%, which is the best case scenario, and then we go with a plus 3.5%, which is an okay scenario, break even, then a negative 3.5, negative 7. And then this year it didn't really make sense to do it the other way, so that's why I went with the 0, the -7, -10. To be quite honest with you, the stock market is certainly on the way of the upswing. Of course, we can't predict the future, but I've been tracking these numbers since the beginning of the year when we did our audit. I think the audit was done around the March timeframe. That's when I started tracking these numbers, and the numbers have steadily grown since that date. And as a matter of fact, Mike Jaworski just sent the Relief Association our update just today, and the numbers have upswung even more since. Yeah, we have recovered $116,000 just in the last month.
Well, I guess my question is normally we're not in this downward on the stock market when we're looking at this. And so we're always looking at the next year. my question is, I'm confused, because it almost looks like, the status quo is the worst case. Am I looking at this wrong?
That's the worst case on this slide, for sure, yes.
So what happens if the market doesn't stay the same and goes worse? And that's what we've always looked at in the past is, 7% up, 7%
Right.
down.
So the number was at, when I had this number at negative 15%, the funded percent would still be at over 110%.
That's where I'm kind of getting,
Yeah.
doing it backwards
Right,
to 110%, how much would the market have to
15%.
tank in
Right.
even more?
right.
So,
It's always, we play this game every year, we're guessing what's gonna happen by the time the end of the year rolls around. Because we have to do our audit in March, and we're trying to predict what's gonna happen by December 31st of that year.
mhm.
That's the way that it always goes when we're doing our audits.
And this one didn't affect you until the 24 budget. So you've got all these months ahead of you yet before this would even affect you if it was to take that big of an hit.
So actually, if you go to, there's a slide previous on here. When we talked, the slide that had the city and state contributions, so go back up
Just
a couple
looking
more.
for it, couldn't find
So
it.
that one with the blue and the green. All right, so in this one right here, in 2010, 2011, those two city contributions were mandatory contributions based on, if everybody remembers back in 2008 when the stock market crashed and we lost 30% across the board for everybody. That all happened in 2008. And nothing kicked in until 2010. And the way that it works is if we become more than 90 or less than 90% funded, the formula kicks in where the city has to contribute 10% each year to make up that deficit. And the only two times that I can see in the history of our Relief Association that ever happened were 2010 and 2011. And I hate to use this term, but the fact that we're already getting a voluntary contribution, what it really does is it flattens the curve. So the fact that you're already contributing $14,000 every year to the Relief Association, that makes a once in a lifetime or once in a decade event like that less painful, because instead of having to pay $40,000 that year, it was actually $40,000 minus the $14,000, if that makes sense at all. So I agree. The stock market is crazy right now, and it seems counterintuitive to do this. However, the fact of the matter is the money in this account is there to provide a benefit to the firefighters. And we're still being prudent by maintaining over 110% funded balance. Many relief associations out there just want to be at 100% funded. We always like to keep a little bit of wiggle room in there, just so that if the stock market does go up or down, it's not, we don't want to run right at the edge. That's the way that we like to run things, so.
Any other questions?
Can you tell me, I know you said this, but I don't remember because a lot of information. How many years does somebody have to be on before they qualify for this?
Sure, so every member that joins is automatically enrolled in the Relief Association, but we have a 10-year vesting period. So if you only are in the fire department between 1 year and 9 years, actually your benefit when you retire is $0.
Okay.
And the whole reason we do that, and that's, the state gives us the opportunity to choose what our vesting benefit is, or vesting level is, and it's anywhere between 5 years and 20 years. Okay, so what we really don't want is to lose everybody at 7 or 8 years. 'Cause that's when the people are really valuable, right? They've got their 3.5 years in of the training, they're really valuable. What we really want to do is get people over that hump and keep them for at least 10 years.
Perfect.
So 10 years, you're at 60%, and then every year after that, you get another 4%. So at 11, you're at 64%, at 12, you're at 68%, until you get up to 20 years, and then you're 100% vested.
Okay, and then what's the total amount they would get at 100%?
So
That's good.
the current amount is $108,000.
Okay. Good deal.
It is actually a good deal, and it is a very strong tool to retain our firefighters.
And that's the maximum they can get.
That's the maximum you would get. Well, every year after that, you would still get another $5,400 today,
Oh, okay,
in today's dollars. So it's $5,400 per year
okay,
as the current benefit level. And what we're asking for is to go to $6,000 per year.
okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, I'll make the motion to approve the increase in the benefit level from 5,400 per years of service to 6,000 per years of service effective December 1st, 2022, and the continuation of the city contribution of 14,000 for 2023 for the EBRFA.
Second.
Motion made, second, discussion.
I just want to say that you guys are worth it, Troy. You're worth the $6,000.
I
We
agree.
got an outstanding
We
fire
all
department,
agree.
and like you said, it's a good recruiting tool now. You know, maybe get some more people on board, but you guys are outstanding, so,
Worth the 6,000, if not more.
yes.
I appreciate that. We all do.
Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Troy.
We appreciate
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, on to our consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, and I'd like to pull item D,
You say that again?
item D as in
D's
dog,
all right.
Delta.
I'll second, I like to pull item C. C is in cat.
Okay. Motion made in second, discussion. Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Tim, item C.
Item C is, as I like to table this because one trustee has not signed off on this letter yet. And then on mine, on some of these different points, I'd like to have the parties, it says parties on here, I'd like to have the parties identified on the agreement. And with that, I'll make a motion to table this until these corrections are made.
Second.
Motion made to table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. That item's tabled. Suzanne, item D.
Item D is the City Hall audio upgrade proposal, which I absolutely agree we need. But I think the price seems like excessive to me. So, and I haven't gone out there and investigated how much these things cost. But I was just wondering if the city had other bids come in on it.
We did not, because this is based like on a state contract bid, so essentially all these pricings that are furnished to us to enable the expansion of the audio inputs has already been bid to a University of Minnesota's contract, which is in line with the state contract system, so this has been bid, these are the cheapest components that they can find, so the competitive bidding process has already been satisfied.
Okay, with that, I'll make a motion to approve item D on the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion made in second. Discussion. Hearing none. To the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. There's no new business. On to department reports. Community development. Stephanie, you're still there.
For this item, I'll be abstaining from voting and discussion, and we'll step down from the
Okay.
dais.
Thanks, Brian.
So tonight we have the final plat for Whispering Aspen, 3rd edition, located off of Highway 65 and 241st Avenue, west of Highway 65. Firebird Land LLC is requesting the final plat to be approved for Whispering Aspen 3rd edition. As part of the conditions of the approval of the preliminary plat, the developer was required to provide an additional ingress/egress to 241st Avenue Northeast. So if you
Would be good.
lost power.
There you go.
There we go. So they were, again, asked to provide an additional access point off to 241st. If If you look up on the plat, you can see that they have, here Polk Street goes all the way down to 241st now. So it will be extended. As part of the update to the final plat, the number of lots have increased from 41 to 43. But since the change in the lot configuration layout is minor, the developer is not required to resubmit. It is a preliminary plat. City engineer completed his second review of the plan set. His comments are provided to you as part of Resolution 2022-48 Exhibit B. All engineering comments must be addressed prior to the release of the approved final plat for the filing with Anoka County. So this morning, city staff, the developer, and his engineers met to discuss the comments. It was a very productive meeting that provided a lot of clarification for the city and the developer and his engineers. All engineering comments will be addressed. Engineering comments do not affect the layout of the plat. Therefore, staff requests City Council to approve the final plat with the conditions set forth in attached Resolution 2022-48. All conditions shall be met prior to the filing of the approval plat with Anoka County.
Okay, we have a resolution before us. Is there a motion on the resolution?
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-48, approving the final plat of Whistling Aspen's third edition.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second. Discussion.
All these things will be met now. There's quite a list here, 29 things. That are gonna be taken care of.
So, yeah, so there's quite a list. A lot of them are minor. There was a few bigger items, but we were able to hash those out. The engineers were today, and we're confident they will be met. And they need to be met prior to the city releasing the plat
Okay.
to be filed with Anoka County.
So how did this increase from 41 to 43? I don't understand.
Well, a lot of their lots they had quite a few of them that were even 90 feet in width on the preliminary plat.
Okay.
And so they were able to shrink those down. I believe on this plat, they could go as little as 70 feet in width, is approved as part of the PUD. So they shrunk down some of those lots and added a couple.
So it's not because of some magic because we had
No,
to add a road.
no.
Okay. So then my question is, so this is a PUD, and we had the ghost plat, and the ghost plat had 41 lots.
Yes.
At what point do we leave the PUD? Because, let me ask it this way. At what point do you leave the PUD and have to revert back to our current code and standards?
Could at any time. It's just the lots would have to meet the current requirements then. Of the code.
I guess I'm asking it wrong. Does increasing the number of lots from the PUD trigger something?
The
Chris?
number of lots, mayor and council, no, I wouldn't say it triggers something. What would trigger something is if it was non-compliant with the requirements of the PUD. So it sounds like it's a minimum of 70 feet of frontage.
Yes, all lots meet the minimum requirements for the PUD.
Yeah, at that point, it would have to be amended or agreed to.
So each of the lots, whether it was 41 or 43, meets the individual lot criteria
Correct.
Yes.
for width and setback and everything else.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
The PUD doesn't state 41 lots.
no, it just states requirements
Okay.
for
All right.
each
Okay.
individual lot.
Okay. That's my question.
I'm going to vote against this because I sincerely feel this contract is, it's against the best interests of the city. I think the contract should be investigated honestly because I think it was a buddy-buddy type of contract. Looking through it, the city gets totally screwed. They get to use the building for free. They don't have to pay us even fair market value. I think that's wrong. The street width is not to code. They don't have to change meet any of the codes of the city because they get to
go with the old codes where everybody else has to meet new codes. And I don't think it's fair to other businesses in the city that have to change and change everything to meet current code. So I'm just letting everybody know why I'm not voting for it.
I can't believe you're gonna do this again to the same development. You remember last time?
I do- I
The
remember.
city's obligated to,
I
they meet the
understand that.
requirements of preliminary plat,
I understand that.
and you vote, I mean, that brought us into a lawsuit that cost us thousands of dollars, what you did. And in the end, the developer was right, we needed to pass it. They've met the requirements of the preliminary plat.
I understand.
And you're gonna put the city at risk again for lawsuit. And again, you're disagreeing with a contract the city signed years ago. And it's your personal opinion that it's not a good contract.
Exactly.
But as a city leader, there's obligations the city has. And one of them is honoring contracts.
I understand that.
I don't know how that's responsible leadership at all.
Yep.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, to the motion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
That motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to staff report. Thanks, Stephanie.
The only thing I have to add is, last week, we received the reimbursement for the Finley broadband study from the county in the amount of $59,000. So, working with the county, they followed through and fulfilled their commitment to fund that project.
That's impressive.
That's great.
That was very good.
That's all I have.
Okay, council reports. Suzanne.
Well, I want to remind everybody, tomorrow's the primary, so please get out and vote. I do have a Blaine Airport meeting, preliminary meeting coming up that will discuss what is going on the agenda for the meeting in October. And if anybody has any issues regarding air noise control, any curiosity of what's in the air, send me an email, call me, or text me, and I will make it on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, Tim.
I got a couple things. First of all, the fire department this morning was driving and address recognition, where they go out and they give them addresses of new places and they have to find out where these houses or buildings are. And second of all, like, last week we had National Night Out. It was well attended. I went to 8 parties and, had nice conversations with a lot of people, and I thought the night turned out very well, and that's all I got.
Brian.
There's no meetings for me to attend, but I did manage to make it out to a couple of night out parties. I would like to thank those residents, faraway neighbors, for accepting us into their parties and treating us like one of their own, very own neighbors. It was very nice to get out and hit some of the parties that I haven't been to before, and meeting new people and getting some of their feedback. And I also want to thank the fire department for giving me a seat to ride to take along to those parties. That's all I have.
Wanda.
I also would like to thank mainly the hosts. It takes a lot to set up those Night to Unite parties, and we had some incredible hosts at the parties we went to. It's very much appreciated, giving us the opportunity to meet you. And then the East Bethel Chamber of Commerce is hosting a breakfast on the farm this Thursday, which is a Meet the Candidates. So if you'd like to come out and meet the Anoka County Sheriff candidates, the Anoka County Attorney candidates, Tom Emmer's office will be there, Julie Brastad will be there, and Cal Barr. Please do. It is at, let's see, what time is it? From 8 to 9:30 at Breakfast on the Farm. The farm is just north of Viking Boulevard on the east side.
Minnesota Fresh Farms.
Minnesota Fresh Farms.
And what date was that?
Thursday.
Thursday,
This Thursday, the 11th.
Okay, in 15 years, oh, at least 15 years of going to night parties, which is one of my favorite things every year. This is the first time, and I rode with the fire chief on this, first time we made it to every party, which was, it was good. It was a lot of good parties and a lot of good hosts, and our night was capped off by a medical call, so I got to leave the last party lights and sirens. I don't think you guys did, so. But it was a good night, good night. And that is all I have. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's made second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.